President Buhari condemns calls for Fulani herders to leave southern parts of the country. International Development Organization Oxfam says Nigeria loses billions in local foreign tax evasions. In international news, New Zealand begins gun buyback since mosque mass shooting in March. And in sport, Nigeria wins third place in African Cup of Nations.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. President Muhammadu Buhari has asked Nigerians to ignore the recent call by the Northern Elders Forum that Fulani herders should leave the southern part of Nigeria and return to their towns and villages in the north. The president says every Nigerian citizen is free to move and live within any part of the country, regardless of their state of origin. The president says his administration will protect Nigerian citizens wherever they may be. President Buhari says no Nigerian has the right to tell another Nigerian or groups to depart from any part of the country, whether north, south, east, or west. The newly confirmed Chief Justice of Nigeria, Tanko Muhammad, has recommended stiffer punishment for any corrupt judge in the country. Muhammad said this during his Senate confirmation as the substantive Chief Justice of Nigeria. Muhammad's Senate confirmation came after 2 hours of screening and questioning by lawmakers during plenary. Muhammad said corruption is a two-way thing that involves both a giver and a taker. He recommended the same punishments be meted out to corrupt judges as other corrupt elements in the society to serve as a deterrent. Muhammad pleaded with the national and state houses of assembly to help carry out a holistic review of criminal laws to make them stiffer for corrupt persons and those who engage in criminal activities. He emphasized that some criminals prefer to go to prison for some years than not profiting from crimes. Victims of Adamawa Senator Elisha Abo's alleged assault did not honor the invitation of the Senate investigative panel set up to look into alleged assault by the senator. The Senate had set up the committee after closed-circuit videos of Abo allegedly attacking a nursing mother at an Abuja sex toy shop went viral. The committee was given 2 weeks to present its report, and chairman of the panel, Sam Ego, has asked for more time for the committee to finish its job. He said efforts to make the allegedly assaulted lady and the shop owner appear before the committee did not yield result. Senate President Ahmad Lawan rejected Abo's request that the Senate not investigate him because the police is already doing so. Lawan said the Senate is investigating the misconduct of its member and not the criminality of the offense. The House of Representatives has intervened in the power tussle rocking the Edo State House of Assembly and has ordered Governor Godwin Obaseki to issue a new proclamation within 1 week for the proper inauguration of the House. It has also directed the Inspector General of Police and Director General of the Department of State Services, DSS, to shut down the Assembly and provide adequate security to allay further fears of intimidation and threat, as alleged by some members-elect. But the Edo State House of Assembly rejected moves by the House of Representatives to disrupt its activities and asked the parties to respect a subsisting court order restraining them from interfering in the activities of the House of Assembly. An international development organization, Oxfam, has revealed that Nigeria's tax system is fraught with crippling challenges of weak enforcement, corruption, and outright evasion, costing the country billions of naira in losses both locally and internationally. Oxfam also said about 1/3 of companies in Nigeria also evade taxes. Records from the country's Federal Inland Revenue Service show that 1/4 of registered companies in Nigeria pay no taxes. A 2015 report by the United Nations organization says on a global level, Nigeria loses almost 600 billion naira annually through unnecessary tax incentives. The 2017 Oxfam Inequality Index shows that the Nigerian tax system is largely regressive, with the burden of taxation falling on poorer companies and individuals. Oxfam's country director, Constance Chukra, called on the National Assembly on Wednesday to enact a law that will punish enablers of tax evasion to face fines of up to 100% of the sum. Now, considering the rising spate of suicide in the country, mental health experts have advised the National Assembly to pass the Mental Health Bill and stop criminalizing suicide cases. The experts spoke at the Ruby Jubilee of the Lagos chapter of the Nigerian Association of Clinical Psychologists. The event with the theme, Taking Giant Strides in Psychological Services for National Relevance, held on Wednesday at the Federal Lagos Neuropsychiatric Hospital medical doctor Dr. Oluwayemi Ogun said one of the ways to prevent suicide was for the National Assembly to pass the Mental Health Bill into law. The head of the Department of Clinical Psychology, Dr. Omotayo Ajirotutu, said there was a need for more awareness to stem the tide of suicides. Coming up, African stories. WHO declares DRC Ebola outbreak a public health emergency of international concern. And later, international news. New Zealand begins gone back.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. The World Health Organization, WHO, has declared the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo as a public health emergency of international concern. The declaration followed a meeting on Wednesday of the International Health Regulations Emergency Committee for Ebola virus diseases in the DRC. This is the fourth meeting of its kind since the outbreak was declared in August last year. The committee cited recent developments in the process of the outbreak in making its recommendation. Those include the first confirmed case in Goma, a city of almost 2 million persons on the border with Rwanda, and the gateway to the rest of DRC and the world.
The Ebola emergency meeting has today advised the Director General to declare a public health emergency of international concern, a FIC. What does that mean? This is still a regional emergency and by no way a global threat.
The latest UN figures show that some 650 persons have died during the current outbreak, while at least 12 new cases are reported every day.
Potential further spread, the committee recommended that I declare the outbreak a public health emergency of international concern, FIC, and I have accepted that advice. Our risk assessment remains that the risk of spread in DRC and the region remains very high, and the risk of spread outside the region remains low.
Was declared almost a year ago, the outbreak has been classified by WHO as a level 3 emergency, the most serious. Ghebreyesus says now is the time for the international community to stand in solidarity with the people of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and not impose punitive or counterproductive restrictions that will only serve to isolate them. And still on the Ebola outbreak, Uganda has seen much more traffic of persons crossing into the country lately. 2 Ebola deaths have been recorded so far. To ensure the problem doesn't escalate, the country is scaling up Ebola awareness among refugees trooping into Uganda to escape conflict in the DRC. Daniel Arap Moy reports.
As the first case of Ebola is confirmed in Goma, the Democratic Republic of Congo's most populated city to see Ebola yet, the Uganda government and relief agencies are on the ground, working in refugee reception centers in Changwali and health facilities to sensitize refugees on how to recognize Ebola symptoms and safely triage and transfer suspected cases to Ebola treatment centers.
If you don't know, you find somebody just dead instantly and you don't know what the person died of, it's not good for you to bury that person yourself. Go to the health facility, They will help you out, come with somebody trained to bury the person, and they will bury the person instead of you contracting the disease from there.
Uganda is currently mobilizing the new arrivals from Congo's restive Ituri province using communication strategies that include interpersonal communication, community engagement and capacity building in order to contain the deadly Ebola virus.
With the current threats of Ebola, officials are trying to sensitize the refugees, especially those coming in from the Democratic Republic of Congo, on how Ebola is spread and how it can be prevented.
Trained health teams are currently mandated to conduct a range of activities to provoke engagement among the refugees regarding Ebola preparedness, prevention and control.
There are digital thermometers which read their temperatures. So we screen for Ebola for the new arrivals, and we monitor them for 21 days. So that's how we do our screening for Ebola.
Though the spread of the disease to Goma is a sign that the response still has work to do in gaining the trust of the local population, Uganda has made progress to reset and reevaluate the response strategy to effectively deal with the Ebola threat.
Recently, Somalia experienced a harrowing death toll when terrorists detonated a suicide bomb and then stormed a hotel in Kismayo. It seems as if more terror is unleashed in the country, the more the government tried to put out the flames. Now, Somali authorities are calling for tighter security cooperation after those deadly attacks. Reporter Abdulaziz Bilo has the story.
Life is back to normal in this city after a deadly terrorist attack claimed close to 30 lives. But the horrors of Friday's attack still haunt many. This is what's left of SSA Hotel after a car bomb detonated inside the hotel, followed by a 10-hour gun battle between security forces and several insurgents. Kismayo is due to host regional elections next month, and campaign is already in top gear ahead of the planned polls. Among those killed in the attack include clan elders and a presidential candidate who used the hotel as his campaign headquarters. Local authorities now warn against politicizing security.
As a regional administration, we are against any and all efforts to compromise security. Let us not mix politics and security. It's for this reason that the Regional Security Council has given a new mandate to security forces until elections are held.
The gunmen disguised as police before storming the hotel in downtown Kismayo, raising security concerns as to how the militant group was able to obtain government-issued uniform.
This was the biggest security breach in Kismayo in the past 8 years. Therefore, we expect close security cooperation with members of the public to ensure that similar attack doesn't happen.
Ahmed Mohamed Islam, the current regional leader, is seeking re-election and is facing increased opposition from other candidates. Meanwhile, Mogadishu insists that the elections must take place in a secure venue, most preferably the airport compound that serves as a base for the United Nations and African Union troops AMISOM. Tension between Mogadishu and Kismayo has been on the rise in recent months. The two have differed on policy regarding resource sharing, appointment of regional security chiefs and the upcoming elections. It's unclear whether the latest attack will change the working relations between the two, but experts warn that Al-Shabaab likely to remain the main beneficiary if the status quo remains the same.
When we return, international news. New Zealand begins gun buyback. And later, sport. Igalo goal wins third place for Nigeria.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In foreign events, former Mexican drug kingpin Joaquin El Chapo Guzman has been sentenced to a lifetime in prison. Judge Brian Cogan sentenced him on Wednesday in a federal court in New York City. To ensure El Chapo never gets out of prison, the judge added an extra 30 years to the life sentence. The 62-year-old drug lord was convicted in February of trafficking tons of cocaine, heroin, and marijuana as a top leader of Mexico's Sinaloa cartel. As head of one of Mexico's largest and most violent drug dealing groups, prosecutors said Guzman was involved in multiple murder conspiracies. The drug kingpin was finally captured in 2016 after 2 daring escapes from Mexican maximum security prisons. He was extradited to the U.S. in January 2017 to face trial. Guzman gained In the 1980s, after digging tunnels beneath the U.S.-Mexico border that allowed him to transport large amounts of drugs more quickly than his competitors. He consolidated power in the 1990s and 2000s through deadly wars with rivals. After 3 days of haggling during a crisis summit, European Union leaders have agreed on a deal for the 5 top jobs of the bloc by nominating Christine Lagarde, Managing Director of International Monetary Fund, as head of the European Central Bank, and German Defense Minister Ursula von der Leyen as President of the European Commission.
After days of intense negotiations, European Union leaders have managed to agree on the bloc's top 5 positions. The list includes German politician Ursula von der Leyen as the European Commission President and a former French politician Christine Lagarde for the second most important position, head of the European Central Bank. The other 3 positions go to politicians from Belgium, Spain, and Italy.
Ursula von der Leyen is one of the leading politicians of the Conservative Party. She's been Minister for the Labour Market. She's currently Minister of Defence. She's born abroad. She speaks foreign languages, so she's very cosmopolitan. I think the more people think about it, the more they think in Germany that she is a suitable candidate.
Von der Leyen and Lagarde could face a tough task in carving out consensus among ideologically fragmented European leaders.
New Zealand police say the country's first gun buyback carried out 4 months after the Christchurch shooting has been a success, with more than 200 prohibited firearms handed over to the state. The policy was announced following the country's worst peacetime mass shooting, in which 51 persons were killed and dozens injured. A gunman had attacked worshippers in 2 mosques in the city of Christchurch in March. The first buyback event was held in Christchurch, and reporter Owen Perland was there.
The New Zealand government has arranged a $200 million buyback scheme to pay gun owners up to 95% of the wholesale price of firearms, depending on their condition.
We're really proud of what we've achieved today. We've had 169 people come through today. We've had handed over 224 firearms.
Chinese New Zealander Mike Choi is happy to surrender his 2 semi-automatic weapons, but the champion long-range marksman says many shooters resent being forced to give up firearms they use for sports and hobbies.
Suddenly they just say, oh, you can't do it anymore. That means they got to stop it. So they're pretty upset about that, these people.
But many are unhappy with the compensation and want to keep their weapons.
If they don't comply, then they face up to 5 years in jail. I think that's a pretty steep price to pay for keeping something that's illegal, and everyone is well aware of this.
This is an example of the military-style semi-automatic weapon that has now been banned in New Zealand. Around 13,000 of these firearms have been officially registered by gun owners, but the problem for the authorities is that nobody knows exactly how many of these weapons are owned illegally.
New Zealand's gun lobby says that 260,000 guns are affected by the new laws and that most owners are reluctant to give up their weapons. However, the police say today's collection shows that handing in firearms is a positive experience.
You've got to remember this law change doesn't make people bad who've got these firearms. They're good New Zealanders.
Meanwhile, the gun lobby has launched a last-minute fundraising campaign to fight the tighter gun laws that many believe won't stop another mass murder.
I don't think they fix the problem, because bad people buying the guns still hold the gun if you're not going to hand it out.
Gun owners have until late December to surrender illegal weapons, and there's some tough talk from the government.
I have sent a very clear message to the Commissioner that I expect police to enforce this and go after those who have not handed in weapons or registered to hand in weapons.
More than 250 collection events are planned over the next few months, and if many gun owners hold back, as promised, the police could be in for a busy time processing weapons at the last minute.
Nigeria wins 3rd place in African Cup of Nations 2019. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News in Sport. Nigeria clinched her 8th AFCON bronze medal in Africa's Premier Football Tournament on Wednesday. The Super Eagles defeated Tunisia 1-0, all thanks to Odion Ighalo's first half effort. Alexi Wobi has described Nigeria's third-place finish as a huge success. The victory stretched Nigeria's unbeaten record in third-place playoff matches to 8 games and the winning streak against the Carthage Eagles at AFCON to 5 matches. There are indications the Federation of African Football's Executive Committee will scrap the two-legged finals for its flagship club continental competition. Reports say there was a consensus at the ESCO roundtable on Wednesday to adopt a single final for both the Champions League and Confederation Cup. The decision may not be unconnected with the embarrassment in this season's Champions League second leg match in Tunisia, where central referee Papa Gazama awarded the game to experience after Wydad Casablanca players walked off in protest. CAF President Ahmad Ahmad has confirmed the decision. The Executive Committee also voted on increasing the number of participating teams in the African Women's Cup of Nations from 8 to 12 from the next edition. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.